Hola, como está?
One more, one more time.
Está.
Oh, so fancy.
Hello, peoples. We are a
Good
couple
morning.
minutes late, but it is all gravy.
The only
Baby.
time I'm. Is this the energy we have today?
That's the
This
energy
what
I
we're
got
working
right
with?
now.
Okay, cool, for sure.
This is the opposite side of depression.
Oh, right on.
So excuse my liveliness. I'm more
I
alive than I
like
have
it.
been past couple weeks. Oh
Okay.
man.
Yeah. All right. It's gonna be a weird day today, guys.
Yeah, it's gonna be very
That's what it
weird.
is.
We're gonna talk
That's
about
okay.
some deep and dark shit today
Mm-hmm.
on both sides.
Absolutely. I'm excited. Everyone else should be excited. My lights are excited.
Check them out.
The space is excited. Do you want to give it a few minutes, or do you want to get started?
I want to quickly verify that I am heard. Yes.
Okay.
Cool. Don't have mods to double check, so gotta do it myself. So yeah, we can start. I'm not sure how you want to introduce it, but today is episode 6, Suicidality. It still sounds weird to me. I don't like it.
You don't have
Suicidality
to
and
say it that way.
stigmas.
Yeah, you can say it your way.
Suicide and stigmas.
Yes. And the way we say it in therapy is suicidality.
I'm not in that
Because it
field,
doesn't
so
have to be, the reason it's all funky like that is because it doesn't have to be like suicide is the action, suicidality encompasses everything, the thoughts, um, the actions.
come to me. Come to
It
me.
works.
There we
You're
go.
good. Yeah, you got it. Tech support, guys. That's what we do here. Um,
Oh, by the
yeah,
way, real quick, thanks for the follow, Darth Raider, wherever you are. Appreciate the support. As always. Go ahead, Jazzy. Go ahead.
well, thank you. Why, thank you. Yeah. So, um, this kind of came up super last minute, because this week at work has been tons of fun for me. And in the middle of an already hectic week, I got a crisis call, said that one of the kids I work with tried to complete suicide. We say complete suicide, because I forget what the explanation was, but complete suicide is kind of
Uh oh.
what?
You effed.
I what?
You effed.
I F. Oh, bro, again with this garbage? Hold
Mm-hmm.
on, let me just. I hate it so much. Look, see, your face looks all normal. My face looks
Because my
stupid.
internet is pretty damn good. What could I say?
I'm gonna
Oh,
harass my roommates
oh,
better.
oh.
What?
We back
Again?
again with.
This is the
uh,
face we get. I'll mess with it later. I'll mess with it when you start talking. Anyways, while my face is beautifully frozen, I got a crisis call in the middle of this week, and one of my kiddos, they thought one of the kids I work with had tried to complete suicide. It sounds weird to say complete suicide. Most people say commit suicide,
mm-hmm.
but we make that distinction because the word commit sounds like the person who took that action, right? It was like, it's not a commitment to end your life, right? It's like, I don't remember how to explain it. It's really hard for me to understand. I'll figure it out. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
Anyways, very serious topic today, that a lot of us have experiences with, at least the thoughts. So, what I wanted to start off by doing is just making sure that for our people who are tuning in, just a reminder that even though I am a therapist, this podcast is just for discussion, just for education. just to share kind of our experiences and our thoughts. By no means does this take place of any professional advice. And as you will probably hear me say a million times, if you or anybody you know are struggling with suicidality, any thoughts, um, and any severe depression, even things like that, just please, 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 please seek professional help. It can never hurt, right? We want to save lives. We want to stay safe. We don't want to make people feel like they're dealing with this stuff alone. And that's exactly what the professionals are there for, including just going to the emergency room. Is probably the easiest one to access. So I just want to put that out there. I will let you go ahead and start, Deshaun, while I get some tech support going over here on this end so I cannot be a frozen face.
Gotcha. So, from my own personal experience, um, I became like somewhat suicidal. It was over like a dumb situation, but at the time it felt like it was a huge deal. Um, I had always dealt with feeling different than everybody else and not loved or cared for. And my fear came from abandonment or like a heavy discipline to where I just didn't feel loved. And the situation was kind of dumb because I was like kind of seeking some form of attention, but I didn't know how to tell people without trying to seek the attention. So it was kind of like it went hand in hand. Um, but it started in middle school. I forgot what was going on, but I was heavily into games when I was younger. And I think I was like, no, I wasn't 16. I think I was. It was somewhere around there, 14, 16. Um, and I forgot exactly what went down, but for some reason I used to carry my games and stuff with me because that was like my keepsake. That just made me happy. So I think I was on the bus one time and I had showed somebody my games, and I kept all my stuff with me, the games, memory cards, and all that. Only thing I didn't have was a console. So I showed somebody on the bus and I put it away in my backpack. And when I would sit on the bus, I usually had my backpack on me. I would lean against it. Um, so I don't know how it happened, but I didn't realize it till after I got home that my backpack was actually opened, and the only thing that was missing was the case that I had with my memory cards and the games. After that happened, I felt like my world fell apart. Like all my favorite games, um, my memory cards, all the time that I put into the games is gone, just completely gone. So after that, I felt like, fuck, man, like I don't have shit. Everything that I dedicated my time to is just gone, 100% gone. There's no getting it back. I have to start from complete scratch. So that was basically the gist of it initially. As I got older, uh, I kind of numbed it a little bit, especially when I turned 18. I started smoking weed, and that was like the replacement of feeling just bad about everything. It felt good to not care and to be like lazy, kind of. So I kind of fell into it. Like some people are productive. When I smoke, I'm like 100% couch potato. Leave me the fuck alone. I'm just in my own world. In my head, I'm doing my own thing. So like when I'm out in public and I'm high, it's like it's super awkward. So anyway, that was my escape from everything, was smoking weed. And I did that for about 10 years and barely quit recently, about 2 months ago. And we went into this last episode, but it's been a tough journey. What's up, Joe? It's been a tough journey these past 2 months with dedicating myself to sobriety. Um, I still have thoughts, but I'll get to that point. Um, the suicide thing has kind of stuck with me for a while, but I just kind of put it away because I would smoke all the time. And the times that I would stop smoking was when everything would start like settling back in. The anxiety, the depression, even though it leaves for a bit because everything feels fresh and new, like I'm not high. The world seems actually pretty great. and then the thoughts, everything just starts flooding back in, everything. So I want to say up until I think about 3 or 4 years ago, when I had the really bad relationship that just threw me over the edge. When that ended, I felt like my world fell apart again. I put so much time and effort into this woman, and she took 100% advantage of me, and my time and my effort. And that it didn't necessarily make me feel suicidal, but I felt so fucking alone, just like by myself. To me, love is between me and another person. Like with family, I don't like saying I love you and things like that because it feels weird for me, at least the way I grew up and what I've experienced with trusting adults and whatnot. It just feels weird to say it. So to me, like I care for them deeply. That's like my way of saying I love you, I guess, in a sense. So when it came to her, I was deeply in love and wanted to do anything I could to make her happy and keep her happy. And no matter what I did, it felt like it wasn't enough. She played the part like, oh, this is great, but it just didn't feel solid. It kind of started from there, and then for some reason, I don't know what it was, but it was my stepbrother's, I guess it was a bridal shower for his wife or something like that. I'm not sure how you would refer to it, but it was a bridal shower. And I woke up that morning with the thought of, I'm fucking done. I am done. I'm sick of this shit. I'm tired of waking up feeling like this. The world sucks ass. I don't know why I'm still here. Like, what the fuck is the point? Anything I want to do, I feel like I can't reach it. It just feels like a dream. I feel like the black sheep in my family. The women I give my time to just waste my time. And I just feel alone, like I can't get a fucking grip. And I woke up just not really mad, I woke up not in the mood for anything. Nothing. Like I didn't want to be awake. I didn't want to be asleep. I didn't want to be in my room. I didn't want to be outside. I didn't want to be anywhere. I didn't want to be anything. And that's when I was like, fuck it, dude. Fuck it. I don't want to say too much, but it got to a point to where I could have ended it, but I didn't have, I guess, the utensils to do so in a sense. I was at the breaking point, but because I didn't have that certain thing to execute it, I realized that I'm not ready to go. As much as I don't want to be here, I'm not ready to go. And I actually felt fear when I almost did it. And that's when I realized, like, even though I don't want to be here, I don't have the courage to just end it all. Because there's something in the back of my mind that just, like, what if? What if? And that's always been there since I was a kid. Like, if I'm at a party or something, and it's like, fuck, I'm tired. It's like, what, 12 a.m., kickback or party is still going, and thinking about going home, but what if something pops off? Like, what if it gets lit? What if we start having even more fun? I'm gonna just stick around. That what if has always been there. So, in that moment, I just kind of paused and was like, I don't want to go. As much as I don't want to be here, I'm not ready to go. It's not just the feeling of not wanting to be here. And I hate when people say this, but they're like, oh, well, think about your family. Think about this. They're not in this state of mind that I am. They don't understand how hard it is to just be alive as it is right now. Just being alive. To some people, it's like, don't think about it. Just go about your day. Be positive. I wish it was that fucking easy. I really wish it was that easy. It's not. It's I don't know how to explain it. Just if you're like some type of religious or something, if you just picture like demons in your head and they don't leave, they just chill all the time. And like, even better example, you know, in cartoons they had like the angel and the little demon on this side, and like angel's saying this, but the demon's like they're overpowering. I don't hear this. It's just this all the fucking time. And that's the hard part, is that you can't escape it. It's always there. Sometimes you don't think about it because I don't know, you're having a good time. You go to fucking Disneyland, for you as an example. Um, you go to Disneyland and it's just all these endorphins and good vibes and feelings. But then for me, as soon as that's done and I go home, it lasts for a little bit and then I fall right back into it.
Mm,
And it's a cycle. I've noticed this over the years that it's the same thing with relationships. I get in a relationship, I'm fucking happy. I'm just like in the best mood ever.
mm-hmm.
About 2 weeks in or so, I start falling back into it again. It's not quick, it's gradual. The 2 week zone is it fell off and now I'm on the decline. Like I'm here is about the 2 weeks and then it's like this. Just straight decline. There's no ripples, it's just straight down.
Right.
Unless something new or exciting happens.
Right.
Um, After that day of my stepbrother's bridal shower, I have never felt more dead inside in my life. I had zero emotion to where like I feel like I killed myself, but it was more my soul. Like I didn't feel anything. I just felt like I was existing. Like I was just there. And I guess the look on my face looked like I was mad because when I went there, I didn't really talk to anybody. I tried not to, as much as they wanted to make a conversation. I just kept it 100% short. I just wanted to be there for my stepbrother because it was a big day for him,
Right.
excluding his wedding, which was even bigger. But it was a day for him because it's them getting somewhere. Excuse me. After being together for so many years, I didn't want to miss it. I wanted to show my support. I went anyway. And I guess I'll just say how it went. I was there for maybe a half hour or so. I don't even think I was there for an hour. By the time I got there, I think they were like finishing up or just started opening up gifts and stuff. And they were kind of cleaning up and whatnot afterwards. I helped put up some chairs and I slipped away. I went inside as if I was going to go use the restroom. I didn't say that, but I just went inside. And I walked out the front door, hopped in my car, and left. And nobody knew I left. But when my parents got home, they were saying, hey, we didn't even hear you leave. My car's loud, so I mean, it's hard to miss me. But yeah, they were like, we didn't even notice you leave. Like, where'd you go? Why'd you leave? And I just told them, like, I wasn't really feeling it. I'm not okay right now. And I didn't tell them anything about what happened until, let's say, a couple months later, if not half a year later. And they told me that it looked like you were mad, and I was like, nah, just like whatever. And time passed, and I kept thinking about that day. About even though I don't want to be here, I don't want to go yet. And I was thinking about my nieces, especially them. They're so precious, but I really want to see them grow up. Looking at my oldest niece, it's just crazy because I seen her from when she was a baby and watched her grow up, and it just amazes me. She's about to be 8, and it amazes me how much older she looks. Like I just look at her and I'm like, damn. Like I never understood it because like when you're a kid and someone tells you like, oh my god, you've grown so much. As a kid, you're like, cool. I don't care. But like being on the other side now, like I'm looking at my nieces and it's like, it's crazy. And I want to make sure that they grow up and be something, that they're happy with their life. They don't have it easy either. My brother tries his damnedest to make it easy on them.
Right.
And I just want to see them grow up and be great. And that's something that I personally want to see. That's part of the what if. At the same time, I also want to be their protector. My brother's there as their protector, but I come second or third. I just want to make sure nothing happens to them and make sure that they live a happy and stress-free life. And that's part of what keeps me going. But at the same time, it kind of goes back to family. Think about your family. I think
Yeah.
about them. but I still feel alone even though they're here,
Right.
no matter
Right.
what. And at least that's from my point of view or perspective that even to this day I still have those thoughts of not wanting to be here. But I know that I don't want to go, so I feel like life itself is torture. I try my best to not project that because I don't like giving off that vibe. People aren't too fond of being around somebody who's, I guess, negative, even though I'm pretty negative. But I don't know. I don't try and seem positive. I just like to be present and try to be present. As much as I'm antisocial and whatnot, and it's hard for me to keep a conversation going, I still try. And that's another thing that kind of bothers me is not being that social. Um, that gets to me sometimes too, because there's times I talk to people and they don't have a response, and it's like, is there something wrong with the way I talk? Like to where it's just not easy for someone to make a conversation off of it, which I'm pretty sure is the case because I don't know how to keep a conversation going for shit. But at the same time, it's like, even though I can't, you can't pick it up like somewhere where I'm falling or something like that, and sometimes I feel ignored, and it's kind of like, why even talk? If I can't keep a conversation going or even make a conversation interesting, why even talk? So most times I prefer to just kick back and listen to convos, respond if talked to, but um, yeah, it kind of goes into all that. So that's my side of the whole suicidality, as she says it.
I I appreciate you for sharing your story because I think this is one of those things that's really like taboo. We don't talk about it, and a
Yeah.
lot of people deal with it, especially last year when the pandemic happened.
Mm-hmm.
Teen suicides rose by 30%. If it's not the number one reason that kids are dying, it's top three for sure, statistically. I just can't remember the exact place that it has, which is ridiculous.
That's pretty fucking high.
That is ridiculous. And just heartbreaking, right? But at the same time, I appreciate what you said about the way we like to respond to somebody who has suicidal thoughts and
Yeah.
struggles with depression because we're not taught how to have these conversations, and it's really scary. Um, Fortunately for me, school beat it out of me. They're like, you have to assess for suicide. Don't beat around the bush. You have to be direct. Ask your client, do you plan on killing yourself? And we're like, what? So now it's like, but you need to know the difference. You need to know the difference between somebody who might want to hurt themselves and somebody who intends to kill themselves because
Mm,
it's different the way you're going to respond. Um, I want to normalize a little bit of it because having that thought when we're overwhelmed and really stressed out or something really difficult happens, part of that, ugh, if I wasn't here anymore, I wouldn't have to deal with this.
mm.
That's normal. Everybody has that. So I just want to normalize that part real quick. It's when
Thanks, man.
it's when
Appreciate
it's
it.
really like consistent and persistent like it is with you, and I used to struggle with this too, and I don't think I told you that. That's when it's a concern, obviously. The good news for you is that you have protective factors, right? There and that was the other thing I wanted to talk about is that people, especially back in the day before we were talking about mental health, would assume that somebody who was suicidal was weak. It was a character flaw. Something's wrong with you as a
Thanks,
person if
Jacobo.
you think like this. But it's not. It's it's an illness, right? Because your brain knows that you don't want to leave this earth, but it is also still having those thoughts. You can't control it.
Yeah.
It's an illness. It's not a character flaw. Um, and it goes hand in hand with a lot of other things too. So, with all that fun therapy stuff out of the way, um, I kind of wanted to. I'm going to touch on my experience just a little bit. Um, fortunately for me, it didn't persist. I don't know what fixed it. I really
Mm.
don't. I just remember really struggling with that in middle school and the early stages of high school quite a bit, where I would have those thoughts. And I knew I had a way to do it and I knew how, but like you, I just never wanted to. And my brain would go there, but logically I knew like I don't want to, I'm not going to hurt myself. First of all, I'm scared. I don't want to hurt myself unless it's like falling out of a tree or something cool or falling off my longboard. Um, but I don't know, for some reason, some of our brains just want to go there. And when life is so overwhelming and you have other mental health issues kind of adding on to those thoughts that are already there, it just
Mm.
makes it so much worse. And you're right, it is. It's like being suffocated by your own brain, but it doesn't hurt. And that's the weird thing. Like suicidality isn't always attached to a deep sense of pain. It's when that numbness kicks in that there's a bigger concern, because that numbness kind of puts you in this position where it's like I could do it, fuck it, like it wouldn't matter. You know, it's not going
Yeah.
to hurt me. I'm not scared anymore. That's when it's like, oh, okay, we need to do something else.
I'm
And
sorry.
I had a
I need a second. I'm gonna have to go off cam for a little bit.
okay. You want me to
Think you
keep
can
talking?
handle for a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, whenever you're ready to come back. So obviously, it's a hard conversation, super uncomfortable. Um, but again, I see it a lot, especially with the kids that I work with. And I had a scare this week, and then I have a client who lost a friend who's 14 years old, and they knew she had family issues and all this other stuff going on in the house, but nobody caught it early enough, I guess. And the thing about those of us or people who still struggle with suicidal thoughts is that you're not going to see it on their face. It's not like it's just ever present and they always look sad or they always look mad, or it's not going to be clear. There's another way to kind of keep your eye on your friends, like if your friends just kind of sort of fall off the face of the earth for a long time and they were never like that before, or a big red flag is when you have somebody who just kind of stops being interested in things that they used to love. Um, like if you guys always went out together and you always used to go like skating, and all of a sudden they just never want to and you don't really know what changed. Things like that are warning signs as well. Or another one too is when people start giving their stuff away, especially if it's like their prized possessions, because they're kind of prepping to not be here and want to make sure their things are, going to the right people. It's kind of like a living will in a way, I guess. um and because we can't talk about it, people try to cover it up. The kids I work with try to cover it up. And the person that I had a scare with this week is one of the happiest, just goofiest people I know. And the parents weren't expecting it. I wasn't expecting it. Nobody was, because this person is just so bubbly all the time, easygoing, always engaged in whatever we're doing. And then I get a text from their dad saying, hey, they tried to jump off an overpass today, and I'm in the middle of work trying to scramble and figure out what the hell is going on. And things like that. Luckily, this person's okay, but things like that are huge reminders of how we need to be better at actually checking in with the people that we care about. Just because somebody looks like they're really happy and really excited and all of those things doesn't mean that they are, right? Like we're taught that we can't talk about these things, so they're not going to. And there's also a sense of guilt with it. Like if I bring this up, like Deshaun brought up earlier, you don't want to talk about it all the time, even though it's always with you, because you feel guilty. Like, I don't want to put my weight on somebody else that I care about because they don't deserve it. And that's not fair either, because then that person's not getting a release. There's no help. There's no positive, I don't want to say positive, but there's no support for that person because they feel trapped. Um, there's just so much that goes into it, and it is a really heavy conversation, which is why we tried to break it up with the talk about stigma. So I think I'm just going to hop over into that conversation and bring up something that was mentioned earlier, which is it's really easy for us to tell somebody who says they're depressed or, having these thoughts of hurting themselves. It's easy to say, well, you just have to be better at focusing on the positive, or just go meditate, or do yoga, or even that think about your family, that guilt trip, right? Because that implies that people who are struggling with suicidality are selfish and they're not already thinking about their family. Of course they are. But when you think about how it would affect your family, that adds on to the guilt that suicidal people already feel about thinking the way that they do and struggling to process those thoughts. Telling them to consider their family's feelings is honestly just piling up on top of what they're already struggling with. And it's definitely not helpful, definitely toxic, just like telling them to be more positive. Telling anybody to be more positive when they're struggling with mental health is just toxic in and of itself. Because, like Deshaun said, if it were that easy, we would be doing it. Like, it's not that nobody's thinking of these things, right? It's not trying to be depressed. It's not trying to have suicidal thoughts or wanting to stay in this bad mood. It's literally struggling with something that's uncontrollable. And those of us who don't struggle with mental health are really quick to, or those of us who aren't acknowledging that we're struggling with mental health, is what I should say, are quick to try and cover it up and give a very like passive, defensive, and superficial response. It's like, all you have to do is this, and all you have to do is focus on positive things, or practice gratitude, or whatever else people say, pray about it. We're not going to get into the religious conversation because I 1000% don't agree. But it definitely takes professional help. It definitely takes support from your friends, and those of us, who want to be supportive, um, are quick to fall into that toxic positivity for the reason that it's not okay to talk about suicidality, or it's incredibly uncomfortable to talk about suicidality because of the stigma that's around it. Because people assume that either something's wrong with this person as a human being, or we assume that they haven't thought of the obvious, which is to just try and be more positive and try and change their mood. All these assumptions that are ultimately harmful and forces people to shut down more until there's nothing left to do except for act on those feelings. Um, there are better ways to be more supportive, and honestly, they're more simple, and the same for those of us who have friends that struggle with depression. It doesn't take all these magical, interventions to be supportive for that person. Honestly, it just takes like checking in on them consistently, letting them know that they're on your mind, whether they respond or not. It's okay to just check in on them, remind that person that you love them. Um, be honest, tell them, I really want to be here for you. I can tell you're going through something, but I don't know what to do. Is there anything you need from me? Those things are far more helpful than trying to fix the problem yourself or trying to give unwarranted advice. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot to say. I don't know if anybody has questions. If you want to pop something up in the chat or share your thoughts with me, please do, because I can kind of go on about this forever, but I feel like I'm going in circles a little bit because it's just such a heavy conversation. And unless you experience it or you have somebody who's experiencing it, it's a very hard thing to explain. Um, yeah, I don't know. There's just so much to it. You back, my dear?
Yeah.
So And it's also really hard to recover from the loss of someone too who has followed through and completed suicide. I'm working with one of my kids with that right now, who's only 14 and has a friend who decided to hang herself. Um, mm, yeah, I mean, there are, of course, like there's things that we can do for our bodies that naturally kind of release those happy hormones, release our endorphins, release our dopamine and serotonin, those things that kind of keep our mood up. Um, the struggle with that is kind of what Deshaun mentioned, is that there's this really hard crash as soon as that element bringing you happiness is gone, and there's this just steep crash. I remember that feeling, since I was 9. Um, it's terrible. It is a horrible, horrible feeling. The other thing too, I mean, I know for us, if there's ADHD in the picture, that's going to make it harder, because another element of the ADHD is really fixating on those things that make you feel good and like overdoing it in a sense.
Excuse me.
And then as soon as it's gone, that was the only thing stabilizing your mood, and that'll cause a heavy crash too. Um, so, of course there are things that we can do, like exercise is kind of a given, but when you struggle with depression to the point that you are having suicidal thoughts, depression is the thief of motivation, essentially. It does
100%.
not it does not matter how much you loved something or how determined you were before the depression kicked in. When the depression kicks in, your motivation for any and everything is gone. It's not it's not even necessarily a deep sadness. Like a lot of people hear depression and they're like, "Oh, you just have to be really sad." And it's not. And most of the time it's not. It's really
No.
like you just flatlined and you really just nothing will satisfy it. Um, Again, if this is consistent and persistent, please, 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 please seek professional help, because one of two things are going to happen. Either you're going to figure out where it stemmed from with a therapist, and you're going to finally get to work through that thing that's re-triggering you over and over and over and over, and you're going to learn new ways to address it that will help stabilize your mood a little bit more than whatever coping skills we kind of developed on our own. Or you're going to find out that those things alone are not going to work, and your brain chemistry itself could be the issue. And at that point, you most likely um, will be referred to seek like medication management, um, because some of us just have funky brain chemistry. And sometimes our brains, just like any advanced form of technology, sometimes they just don't fucking work. And it's not anybody's fault. It's not the parents' fault. It's not the person's fault. It's nothing to even be ashamed of. And there's literally a solution for it. It's called go seek a psychiatrist or somebody who is trained, and they will help you figure out what the issue is, because nobody deserves to live in that state constantly. But it's hard to get yourself out of it, because again, the depression is going to suck all the motivation out of your body, like you are an empty tube of toothpaste.
It's a good analogy.
It's one of my specialties. Um, yeah, and honestly too, and I don't know if this is true for you, but now that I'm thinking about it, for me, what kind of helps those thoughts subside was literally when I moved, and when I got out of my parents' house and I went to college. And I think that for me, I think that was my trigger, because I grew up around them arguing all the time.
Hmm.
Uh, and even still, when I go back and I go visit, and I'm like, just sometimes random smells in the desert trigger me. Sometimes being on streets triggers me. The weather sure as shit triggers me, not just because it's 10,000 degrees outside, but because of me having memories of just already being uncomfortable because of the weather, and
Yeah.
then being stuck in my house, on top of that, being forced to sit alone with my depression as a little kid with parents who had no idea what mental health was, had no idea what was going on. She's just angry and damn it. That's so ugly.
117 summers, yeah, those are whack. Were you here when it hit? I think it was like almost 1:30 or something like that.
Jesus, 130?
Yeah, I think it
Oh,
was like
yeah.
126 or 128 or something like that. It was a few years ago.
Shit. Is that when everybody's air conditioner broke?
Probably. No, it wasn't last year. It was at least three
You're
years ago.
stop.
At least. But yeah, I'm not sure if everybody's AC went out, but I just remember it felt like ACs were not even working. It was that fucking hot. You hop in the car.
My parents broke.
I don't remember. Oh, it's all good. Um, yeah, I remember you would hop in your car. I mean, you go to work or something, and the car never cools down. It stays hot the whole time. Yeah, it was fucking bad. It was
Mm-mm,
bad.
mm-mm.
2018.
That's
That sounds about right. That sounds about right.
I think so. Yeah, because I was out here and my parents were like, I think right before that was um when I started my master's, and
Mm,
they were like, "Oh, come back home. You don't have to work because you don't have to pay rent. You'll save so much money." And I was like, "Yeah, right. I'm not going back to your house. I'm too old to be living with you.
mm-hmm.
Fuck it." And I stubbornly worked my ass through. Um, all those years just to not go back to my parents' house. And then they're like, "Oh my God, it's 126 and our AC broke and it's $5,000 to fix it." And I'm like, "Remember when you wanted me to go back home?" No. Uh, but
Uh,
yeah, for me, at least that was my trigger because I've lived in the same house almost my entire life. We moved into the house my mom is in when I was 7.
damn.
Yeah, right. Um, So it's still a trigger for me. My room's a little better because we literally just like ripped the whole thing apart and redid it. So it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't look like my childhood bedroom, but I remember just being in there for hours with the lights out, blasting whatever Papa Roach and had Last Resort on repeat, like my punk ass was gonna do anything about it. Um, but I was also struggling with a lot of trauma I didn't know about. I was struggling with a lot of anxiety that I didn't know about. I didn't know it was a thing. And again, my parents didn't have that education at all. They only
Yeah.
finished high school, so they had no idea what was going on. They just thought I was being a teenager. Um, and then lo and behold, I find out that I have ADHD I didn't know about. Isn't that so exciting? Being an adult is terrific.
Yep.
Um, but all those things in a hormonal little girl whose parents are fighting day in and day out, like it's just a recipe for disaster. It's a wonder I survived without ever doing drugs.
I'm
Just let
surprised.
me tell you.
Shit.
The only thing that outweighs my attitude is my dedication to my physical health. That's it.
That's a fact. That
But
is
yeah,
definitely
and
a fact.
I'm kind of wondering if it'll be similar for you. Once you get into an environment that suits you, and that you're happy and that you feel fulfilled in, I feel like it might not fix everything, but I feel like it'll alleviate a lot of that because the desert is just such a trigger for so many people that I know. It's just too small, it's too quiet. It's like if a city could make you claustrophobic,
This would be it.
hell yeah, that would
It's
be it.
it's the same old. And me personally, I mean, I've been stuck with my parents for as long as I've been alive now, and I've tried moving out like 3 times, and all 3 times didn't work out. 2 of those were 100% my fault because I should have known better, but I did it anyway. Um, the first time I was 18, I was with somebody. I think it was for a few months, like 6 months or something like that, and we ended up getting our own place together. And shortly after that, we fell apart. So I ended up moving
Jesus.
back home. And then after that, I was in a relationship that everything went way too fast. I think that the relationship lasts like not even 3 months, and I moved in after the first month. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Bruh,
Um, it was
where was I?
dumb, but I had high hopes that things were gonna be great. It was with the alcoholic. That it was
Where
that
was
one
I? Why was I not? You probably didn't tell me because
on
you knew.
purpose, cause
I was
I.
gonna sass the shit out of you. Oh my God, I would have shown
uh,
up and I would have dragged you out by a fucking toe. I don't care what I could grab, a kneecap, and I'm
It's
dragging you out
that's
of that house.
probably what I needed. That's probably what I needed. I was head over heels and didn't give a damn. I was just like, this is gonna work. This is gonna work.
I don't
It
mean to
didn't.
laugh at you.
Um, and then I think that same year I moved out again, and it was with my other best friend at the time. She wasn't as special as you, but my other best friend. She was my coworker as well. She had friends, kind of sorta, that lived with her in her place, um, and they moved out and got their own spot. And I went over there to go visit, and they're like, "Yo, you should move in," like as a joke. And then I joked saying, "Yeah, I should. I should take that room right there." And then the dude that was renting the place really thought about it, and he's like, "You know what? Go ahead and move in. Rent's this much." And I was like, "You know what? That's a great idea. I get to get out of my parents' house." Excuse me. Keep in mind, I didn't know him that well. I knew him. I thought I knew him well enough, but as they always say, once you live with somebody, you see how they actually are. And
Hmm.
goddamn, it was not living conditions that I wanted to live in. And then on top of that, they tried to get me to do things I shouldn't have to do because I don't own the place. I wasn't really out there like they was, but they still try to make it happen. Yeah, nah. Um, so that kind of fell apart within 3 months of me living there. Everything was like peachy when I first moved in. Like they were like so excited to have me there. We are doing a bunch of shit together, and then over time it was me and the main dude started butting heads, and it didn't turn out good. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just bounce. I'm gonna just bounce. Fuck it. So that was the last time I moved out, and ever since I told myself I'm either gonna get my own spot or get my own spot. Those are the
I
only
love those
options I got.
options.
And I need to have a job that's going to pay enough of that for me to be have my own spot and be comfortable. I don't want to move into some raggedy ass apartment just so I can be by myself.
Don't
So
recommend it. I don't recommend
yeah, part of one of the triggers is definitely being here. Every time I step out of my room, it's a reminder that I am not alone. I mean, it sounds stupid after the whole thing I was talking about, but
it. A
having
little
your
bit.
own space to where you could just do whatever, be yourself, not have to worry about somebody else being in your zone.
Right.
It bothers me a lot. It's nice to
Right.
just walk out and not have to worry about anybody talking to you, seeing anybody. You're just doing your thing. So
Right.
that is definitely a trigger, and being in this fucking desert is a trigger. There ain't shit to do, especially now with this COVID shit. But that's a whole nother story.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine being out there right now.
Yeah,
I would have lost. I mean,
I mean,
I almost lost it too in
w-
Huntington.
w- oh, I seen you post something about that. What was that about? This is recent.
It is recent
Mm.
because on Sunday there was a White Lives Matter protest in Huntington Beach. Even my white half was like, I don't want to get into it. I
Me
digress.
either.
Because I am just very glad I don't live there anymore. Because let me tell you, like I said, Huntington Beach is the
Hmm.
Florida of California. It's disgusting. We should just saw it off the coast, push it into the ocean, let them all go somewhere else, float away, go.
I don't know about all that. What's wrong with Florida?
What's wrong with Florida?
What's wrong with Florida?
And do you watch the news?
They
Have
got
you ever
weirdos
watched
out
the
there,
news?
but shit, we got hobos that are weird too.
First of all, we're having a conversation about stigma, and I'm very protective of homeless people because I work with a lot of
No,
families of
okay, let me verify. The crackheads on the streets don't give a damn about nothing, and they put themselves in that position. Those are the
bro,
ones I'm referring
anybody
to.
anybody on crack. doesn't give a damn about anything but crack.
That's
But
my point.
substance use, like we talked about last week, is also a mental illness. Okay, so just be careful.
No, I know, but I'm saying if
Even crackheads.
I know,
You-
but what I'm saying is, we talking about people that may not be on drugs and they crazy. I'm talking about the crackheads that are crazy. I'm
I
not.
would
I'm not
rather
shitting on
crackheads
nobody. I'm just
with a
saying
bunch
that,
of
huh?
yeah, no. I'll take crackheads over rich, privileged, ignorant, self-centered motherfuckers any day. Any day.
I'll let you think about that twice.
I'll think about it 6 times and I will still pick crackheads because I know how to work with substance use issues and mental health. I don't know how to work with self-centered rich bitches. I don't have the patience for it. At least when there's mental health stuff involved, I'm like, okay, part of this is out of your control.
Mm,
When you go to Huntington Beach, you're like, you're literally choosing to be like this and you like it. I really?
that's fair.
That's the
That's
life you
fair.
pick? This is who you want to be?
That's fair.
Okay. I gotta go so I don't shoot you. Um, so we're sawing them off. Or we can airlift Huntington Beach, drop it off in Florida, pick up Disney World, put it here where Huntington Beach used to be. I get 2 Disney parks. All the racist fucks get to be together. Fantastic. Everybody wins. That was world peace right there. Boom.
Should I suggest that? See
I
what
will.
goes.
I'm gonna write to the president. Whatever. um, but yes. So back to our
Yeah,
conversation.
that was a huge sidebar.
It was. It was, but necessary.
Uh,
Um, it's very important to know what your triggers are and to know how to manage them because I when I was finishing up high school, I knew the second I could get out of my parents' house, I was running for the door.
mm-hmm.
And I love them. Like I say all the time, we have some new humans here though. I say this all the time. I absolutely adore my parents. They are fantastic parents. They are both my best friends. I talk to them all the time. They're goofy. We're weird. We get along fantastically. They have spoiled the life out of me for my entire existence, which is why I'm the way that I am. But together, they are not. It doesn't work. They should not be together. They should not be in a relationship. And I tell them to their face all the time, so this is not a surprise. Um,
I mean, I'm sure they know themselves as it
they
is.
do. They do. They just want to be stubborn because they've been tolerating each other for 30 years and like, it's too late. We're too old now. And, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, first of all, if I'm miserable with somebody for even a couple months, you gotta
Mm-hmm.
go. Kids together, don't give a fuck. House together, I don't give a fuck. You got more money than I do, I don't give a fuck.
Yep.
Bye. Go. Please go. I will go live in a tiny, shitty apartment with a cat by myself, pay my own fucking bills before I put up with somebody who makes me miserable. Um, but the reason I'm like that is because my mother is not. So, again, they're fantastic, but just being in their relationship dynamic as toxic as it always has been, I just booked it. And now that I'm thinking about it, it was hard, obviously, to survive out here by myself. And sometimes I thought I was going to have to move home. I thought I wasn't going to figure it out financially to be able to stay out here, but I did because it was worth it, and I knew I needed that. I knew that that's what my trigger was, and I knew I needed to be able to manage it. And now I actually have never processed this part before this conversation. So we taught me something about me today. But I hope you figure those things out. Like, figure out what your triggers are. Pay attention to what's changing your mood, and if those thoughts are always present, that's one thing. But what's making them more intense? What's making them more persistent? Those are your triggers, and just chip away at like one little one at a time, and start to see if it helps.
Is that a reference to me or everyone else? Oh shit.
You and
Oh,
everyone, but
it's
mostly
really
you.
hard, as you said with the ADHD thing. Like I'll
Oh,
focus on one thing for a bit, and then I'll get distracted and be like, I'm good. And then things like earlier, it just kind of like took me out sideways. Honestly, I did not expect that shit to happen. I couldn't stop it.
Right.
Um, it's all good, Raider. You did spell it wrong, but it's cool. Um, Earlier you mentioned that when you speak to people, it bothers you. They sometimes don't comprehend what you say, and you blame yourself for it. I guarantee you, it's usually on them. Lots of people are so focused on how they're coming across, they don't really absorb what you're listening to. Communication is great. Thanks, man. Um, I halfway believe that. I have social issues that I haven't like I guess refined in a sense. I'm in my head a lot, so when I talk, I overthink as I'm talking, and even sometimes before I speak, and I'm thinking like two or three sentences ahead in the conversation. Like it went back and forth a couple times before I even say it, and sometimes when I say something, I'm at that like fourth or fifth sentence already, and it kind of throws people off. It's really weird for me to explain it like that. That's the best way I could put it. But yes, there are some times where I do notice that people are a little bit focused in whatever they're doing or whatever they're at, wherever they're at, like in their head or whatever. Um, that they don't pay attention. But I do appreciate it a lot.
I mean, like on that note too, because I've we've known each other forever, and you don't have a problem with communication. I think what throws you off is your own mood,
Mm,
and when you know you're not in the mood to do it, and you're pushing yourself to do it anyway, is when I think it's just overwhelming for you. It doesn't really come off. I mean, sometimes if you're really, really cranky, like with me, because I see it, you're a turd. You are a turd. You're really short and really to the. But I know you well enough to
yeah.
know I'm just gonna give you space. Go figure that out, and then come talk to me when you're ready. Don't make yourself talk to me if you're not in the mood to.
Mm.
Uh, but that's all it is. It's not actually like the way you talk or anything like that. It's not, you never had an issue with that. I think.
It's because I'm comfortable with you. It's really bad when I'm talking with somebody I don't know. Like that's what makes this podcast easy. It's because I know you. Like we've known each other for years. But like when, for example, at work today, I tried to make conversation with one of the guys, and first time I've ever known him, I've only known them for like 4 fucking hours, and I'm trying to make a conversation. And granted, he was working, but at the same time, like I'd say something and I'd get no response, and I'm just like,
Mm,
mm, I get it. We're not really like talking about anything much. Kind of just chatting. Like I was talking
mm,
about a car that I wanted to get, which is
mm,
still supposed to be a secret because I'm not 100% sure what it's supposed to be. But anyway, I was talking to him about it and the situation, and I didn't really get a response out of it. So it made me think: was it even worth saying anything? Should I even say anything in the first place? Like
mm.
it's something that concerns me. They obviously don't care, but I was trying to make a conversation to get something out of it, but I got
Right.
nothing. So it's kind of like, do I even talk about anything? And to be 100% honest with y'all, I thought about this before I even started the job. Because in my last job, I
Mm,
felt like I talked a lot, but even though I talked a lot and tried to make conversation, I didn't get much response out of it. I kind of got
mm,
the same shit with everybody. It was just kind of like, oh, cool, or yeah, you right, or something like that. And it's like, it never went anywhere. It's like I was just
mm.
speaking my mind and someone gave me a piece of their 2 cents or something like that. So, um,
I
at work today, that's basically how it went down, which is why I said what I said. It's just when
right.
I talk to some people, I feel like I'm just talking. I'm just whatever's in my brain, I say it out loud, and they're just
Hmm.
kind of like, I don't know what the fuck to say what you just said. So that's cool or okay, or some shit like that.
I don't think it's always that. I used to be the same way. I used to overthink everything I did, every facial express. It was so bad,
Mm,
especially in high school, that I literally was paying attention to every muscle in my face that was moving, the way that I was standing, the words that I was using, the tone of my voice and how to change that. Literally everything, how long I was making eye contact, what direction I was looking at, feeling if I had shit on my face while I'm
mm,
talking. Like it was like this all day long. Um, when I got all my anxiety and stuff under control, I realized people are just fucking weird. And to people only listen to figure out how to respond. And if they don't have a response, they're literally just going to drop the conversation. Like, nobody here knows how to hold a damn conversation.
Mm.
And once my anxiety was under control, that's when it clicked. I'm like, this is not me. You have an issue. You don't know how to talk. But when your anxiety subsides and you know it's not always on you,
Mm.
you don't feel that pressure. You're just like, they just stop responding and you're like, okay, fuck it, bye. And you move on to the next thing. But when that anxiety is there, it's just like, oh my God, what did I do? Did I say something wrong? Was the tone of my voice weird? Did my face look weird? Should I have even talked about that? Should I keep it to myself next time? Like, that's
Yeah.
literally just anxiety taking over. It has nothing to do with who you are. And again, you don't realize these things until the symptoms are out of the way and you
Mm.
can actually see things for what they are, and you're not looking through this lens of anxiety. You're not looking through this distorted, point of view. And that's the hard thing. When there's mental health in the way, you don't realize how much it's taking over your brain till you get some of it out of the way. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh shit, all of that was from you? I hate you. Please don't ever come back to my brain ever again. Good day. But people do that to me all the time. They literally just stop talking. But now that I'm not so anxious, I just don't care.
Mm.
And you realize it's them. And remember, we talked about like a while ago how um, out of every state in the country, California has the lowest social and emotional scores in our children's development out of all other 49 states, even the ones where you can marry your cousins,
I
which
mean,
includes
yeah,
us,
it's
by the
weird.
way.
But I could see that. I mean, California is the golden state. It's where the richest people are, quote unquote. Um, so with wealth comes technology, and most kids nowadays are into their tablets, iPhones, iPads, phones, Androids, all that shit. So I wouldn't doubt it. The virtual world is, or digital world, however you want to refer to it, is a lot different than real life. And I think for some of us, we're kind of like on the cusp of that, to where
Mhm.
at least nowadays it's even. I shouldn't say it like that. Nowadays it's even worse. Before, like for our generation, it was, I guess, getting worse. It wasn't necessarily worse because we had the social aspect of everything before it went to like AOL Messenger and shit like that. We had text messaging, but that was still like, and you had to pay per text or something like that. I forgot how it went. But texting was not popular back then. If you text, you had money and you didn't care.
It was a struggle, bro. It took
Yeah,
7 minutes to type one fucking word.
fucking pressing the same number like 3 times to get a
Yeah,
letter.
nobody was trying to do
I remember that. I was a king at that.
that. And
But yeah,
I mean,
see,
and it
text
is.
that.
And California is very techy too. We're very, very techy.
Yeah.
And because of that, we rely more heavily on that technology. And our children are, and we're workaholics too. And our kids are biting the bullet for it. And that did hit us a little bit. Not too bad, right?
Mm.
Because we had like at least our foundational years growing up without technology. And then it slowly kind of came in while we were still developing. These kids now are just being assaulted with technology.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening right now, especially because here's my other issue with stigmas, real quick, sidebar. Um, we have this huge stigma about mental health, right? Like, if you have a mental health issue, you're a shitty person, you suck, your character's flawed, your parents are garbage, fuck you, and your whole entire life. Um, but 1 in 4 people has a mental health issue. So, like,
25%.
and
That's a huge
where,
piece of the pie.
what's happening? You know what I mean? It's just like, those two things don't go together. And I think what we're watching as far as like social skills are concerned, I think we're seeing the negative effects of technology dependence starting to pop up. because it's been long enough now. When we were little, it was new. We weren't going
Mm,
to start to see the effects. It's like when we're like right now with this vaccine. We're going to find out what happens in a couple of years, guys. We're not going to know right away because it's new. And we're going to keep adding on to it and developing it. And I've heard some clinicians say that they think technology and social media should be regulated the way we regulate drugs because it's just as addictive in our brains. Um, I have a feeling that a lot of people are not going to be fans of that. Me personally, I don't care. If I'm too glued to my phone, I'll literally leave it in my car and just go hang out by myself just to
mm.
make sure that I'm not becoming too attached to it. Um, and I would do that constantly before I started this job, and now I have two phones uh, to leave at home. But I get in trouble when I leave my phone. So, anyways, I see we have a question.
Yeah. What's one thing you've gained from working together? I'm gonna let you start this because I hate asking questions to a question because you give me shit about it, but I just want to understand exactly where you guys are coming from.
I just ask.
Well, I mean, working together, like as far as this podcast goes,
Or
um,
like tolerating him for 10 years because I mean, loving.
um, I guess gained from working together. To be honest with you, these past like 10 years or so, maybe even 11, um, or it's like
Mhm.
11 or 12, right?
Bruh, 12 now.
Yeah, my bad. Shit.
Jesus, we're old.
Um, tolerating someone for 10 years. um, Over the years, I've already told you guys the story, or we kind of told you guys the story of kind of how all this started. Um, it was kind of like a rough friendship, and I never knew how to deal with it. So I was a little distant, and then I pop in for a bit, and we got a little bit too much. I became distant, and I pop in for a little bit. But we always kept in some form of communication. I would have to say now is probably the most time we have spent together consistently. And as far as anything gained, I'd say quality time. Um, that's probably about all that I could think of because, like I said, after like through all these years, I've kind of been in and out, especially with her life. She's tried to be consistent, but me, it's hard for me, even just with a regular friendship, to be consistent. Period. Um, Sometimes it gets to be a little bit too much, and I back off because I think the anxiety. I think about shit too much. I'm just kind of like, I feel weird. I don't want them to feel weird because I feel weird, so I'm just back up a little bit, give them some space. And some people don't like that. That was actually something else I wanted to touch on too. Um, doesn't need a whole episode, but I have noticed lately, since I've been keeping to myself, that I have lost a lot of friendships because they don't understand exactly what's happening, at least on my end. I don't want to tell them, yo, I'm going through this, and they're like, oh, okay, we'll just talk to them whenever it's clever. I hit them up, I'm like, oh yeah, we're cool, and then I fall off again. And it's kind of like, they're probably going to think, yo, they probably don't like me, they're just trying to be cool, and then not want to talk back. And that's kind of how I feel like things happen because, excuse me, for example, my detailer, the guy who washes my car, we fell out and I have no idea why. I don't know what happened. We would talk about cars. He would come and wash my car, and I live all the way in the Cove. Homie, I think works out of India or Coachella. He would drive all the way to my spot and wash my car for $30. And I think that was part of the issue, but he never said anything. And because I don't really hit him up that often, I probably talk to him once a month, if that. So I kind of just lost his friendship. He don't text me at all, and I tried hitting him up to come wash the car, and he just don't text back. So it's like, I don't know. It's hard for me sometimes to keep a friendship because I feel like people don't think I'm a real friend. So because of that, I don't want to be a friend. I prefer to be an acquaintance because then there's no expectations. With her, she stuck around regardless. Granted, there have been times where she wanted to drop my ass because not like, but I'm saying like, drop me out of existence just because of the way I was treating her. But I've made a few promises. The same promise over and over is what I mean. That I was gonna stick around and do better. And over time, I think I've gotten better. I'm still not as best as I could be, but I am better than I was. And this podcast is what's keeping us consistent. She even brought it up herself. I forgot when it was, but I think it was before our last podcast. We had a little conversation before we started, as we normally do. And she said that we haven't been in like close contact for a while. And now that we're more consistent, we're more involved in each other's lives in a sense. And we kind of have to realize that what we're used to from before is not necessarily how things are now. It's a lot different now from what we used to know. So I would say it's been a positive journey, I guess. I mean, we're on episode 6 of this podcast, which means what, about a month and a half in on this now. So I'd say it's been a good little experience. We've gotten closer, I'd say. We talk more often. That's me.
Talk to me more often.
Yeah, I talk to her more often.
Sucker. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think we're gaining more insight into each other's perspective. Because, yeah, we've been friends for a long time, but we would like see each other twice a year, maybe.
Yeah.
Hang out for like a couple hours. My mom hated him. His nickname in my household is that fool. I don't know why. I didn't do it, but I'm just like a really intuitive friend, and if I feel that somebody is one of my people, and I don't feel instinctively this need to separate from that person, I won't do it. Regardless of what's going on. Like, obviously, you've pissed me off our whole friendship. I've pissed you off our whole friendship. We trigger the shit out of each other constantly. But, you know, we love each other too, so that's good, right? And now that we're doing this together, I think we're actually learning about why we would trigger each other so much. Like, we kind of just put up with it before, and, like, whatever, like, you've already been here this fucking long. Like, you're not going anywhere anytime soon, bro. I'm just going to swallow it and call it a day.
Yeah.
But this gives us the opportunity to actually, like, learn what's going on, and I feel like, in a way, kind of, like, forgive those things and, like, move forward and know how to work with each other better, because now we're having this discussion, and now we know, oh shit, like, you couldn't tell me this before, but you've been struggling with depression. I feel like that too changed our friendship, because I think that's when I was in Huntington Beach and you started calling me and letting me know a little bit more of what was going on for you, and that showed me that you really trusted me.
I trust the shit out of you more than anybody else on this earth.
Ah!
You know more about me than almost anybody. Not almost anybody, than anybody. You know a lot. Age brought wisdom. Yes. Brought wisdom and did away with assholeness. At least on my side.
I don't know, it's just those little actions that mean a lot to me. Like, somebody sharing something that they really struggle with, like you sharing how much you were struggling with, that's when I kind of flip my switch. And I realize it, because I don't just think people trust me until I see it. I don't think people care about me until I see it. Like, I'm a very evidence-based human being.
Yeah.
I need the follow-through and I need the consistency. 2 things that you are not very good at. But it has gotten better. And when we had that conversation, for me, I was like, oh shit, like, I really am his friend. You know, you're not one of the people that's like, yeah, no, we're friends, but really I'm just trying to hook up with you. So, like, but no, we're friends, yeah. And then nothing happens, and they're like, hey, bye. And you're like, fuck you. Like, Hi. And you were never like that with me, thank God, because then I would have let my parents stab you.
Yeah,
Um,
that would have not ended well.
no. Um, for those who don't know, my parents live like right down the street from his parents. So, and
Yeah,
we met in like high school.
they're not too
So,
far.
not far enough. um,
Her mom seen my car and was like, "Oh my god, it's such a nice car."
yeah, she
She
sent it
didn't
to
know
me
it
on
was me.
Instagram. She's like, "Ooh, I drove next to this today, and it's his Charger." I'm like, "Mom, that's
Little
Deshaun."
did you know it's that fool.
Her attitude changed so fast. She's like, "Oh yeah, it's nice." You're such a brat. My parents
Uh,
will let you know if they don't like you. They'll tell you straight to your face, no shame.
Granted, as much as her mom doesn't like me, we're still cool enough to get along with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom's not mean. She's just a little bit of a bully.
Yeah,
A
that's
little
the
bit.
best way to put it. She's a bully. She's straight up a bully.
Where I get it from. How do you think I felt growing up? I get picked on all the time. My dad would sit on me and just fart on me, and then my mom would punch me. Like, why am I here? What did I do to you? I'm a gentle little baby. You want to just kill me. Um, but yeah, yeah, that's my 2 cents. I feel like we're able to sort of learn about each other. We can forgive. We can move forward, and I think we're actually building the friendship now that we both wanted in the first place.
Yeah, I agree.
So yay! Thanks for the question. I didn't think about that at all till you
Yeah, me
asked.
either until you said something.
That was cool.
Appreciate that.
And rant is done. Shall we take any additional questions?
Yeah, we're on the closing end of this stream.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. I know this is a really heavy discussion.
Yeah, super heavy. Mic drop.
Yay! That's going on Instagram.
I already knew that. I already knew that.
It's all good. Yeah. Yeah, and thank you, Deshaun, for sharing again. That's why I asked you beforehand. Let me know if you're ready for this conversation because you never know
Yeah,
what you're gonna reverse.
I was not prepared. I'm gonna be 100%. I was not prepared. I thought I'd be okay, but as I was talking about it, it really hit the spot. Like really hit the spot. And again, sorry, I had to step back for a little bit. It's kind of hit me right now, but everything just kind of just came at once and didn't stop. I was trying to keep it together, but it didn't.
Yeah.
You're welcome, man. That's the whole point of this podcast. We want to shed light on things and basically help people not feel alone. Because this shit is real. It's not like we're professionals with a fucking notepad and shit. Like, yes, you can experience this. Like, nah, we've been through this shit, man. We just want to feel like everybody feel inclusive. I mean, there's nobody that's different. We all deal with shit, and that's basically why we brought this thing together. She had her own goal, and I had my own, and we just combined it to what I actually love doing. As much as I seem like I don't want to be on stream sometimes, I like what we're doing, especially when we have your guys' support. Thanks, Claudia. Yeah, it's just nice to see you guys here, taking your time. I mean, y'all have been here for at least an hour. I mean, that shows a lot. You could have been watching your favorite show, hanging out with your fam, but you dedicated an hour to just hang out here and hear us out and put in your 2 cents. I mean, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If you guys have any questions, this is lit. What's up, Kier Walls? If you guys have any questions, we will close out with that. If not, we're gonna have to say bye-bye. Let's have to see you guys next week.
And any suggestions for topics?
Oh yes, especially those. If you can't
Attack
think
me
of
on
anything
Instagram.
now, feel free to hit up the Instagram account, which there we go. She manages. She will gladly answer and reply and
I do.
whatnot.
Yeah. Provided that work doesn't try to
Throw you
sideswipe
off
me with a
again.
semi truck. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a rough week.
Bro. Oh my god.
PTSD.
Triggered.
Yes,
Well, we
ma'am.
love you guys.
So I take it we don't have any questions unless somebody's typing a paragraph right now. Um,
Ooh.
so yeah, we have a week until our next podcast. It's cool. If you guys come up with any ideas, feel free to hit up the Instagram, which is under. I think it's under this.
I think it's on there.
Oops, I typed that wrong.
You missed a letter.
E. Here we go. That's the Instagram.
Yeah.
Like I said, she manages it. Ask her any questions or give any topics for the next week. This can be consistent. If you come up with something, don't be afraid. Hit her up. Each episode is dedicated to at least one or two things. And yeah, it'll help us with topics so we can find more things to talk about, especially on her end. With her being in the field, for me, it's more of personal experiences and people that I know that are also going through things. So, yeah, again, as always, I appreciate you guys hanging out. It's nice. Hopefully we see you again next week. And until then, a deuces.